BAFTA, the British equivalent of the Oscars, had an incident where you had a white man, John Davidson, who has Tourette syndrome, yelled the N word while Delroy Lindo and Michael B. Jordan were on stage. This is a powerful moment to understand the complexity of inclusion practices where we need to simultaneously understand how disability is operating here and also the impact of racist experiences. Successful inclusion work requires us to hold multiple truths at the same time. Truth one, the N-word has a long history of violence and harm. And truth two, Tourette syndrome is a disability that creates involuntary tics where people may shout harmful things when they didn't want to. Both of these things are true, but inclusion is not only looking at the truth, they're also investigating how power is operating and the choices that need to be made. In this situation, BAFTA had the most power. They made a choice to not edit out the expletive that was yelled when they aired the program. Also, Alan Cummings, the host, gave a apology, which y'all go over. So here are 4 things I think we can learn from this BAFTA experience. Non-apologies avoid accountability. So when you say something like, I'm sorry if you were offended, you're focusing on the reaction and not the action. So you're saying the only reason we have an issue here is because of your reaction. So the issue is that you're too sensitive, not that I'm insensitive. So when I say, sorry that if you were offended, I'm not taking responsibility for what I said. I'm acknowledging that you may be feeling too much. Number 2, prioritize impact over intent. What we don't know is how Davidson feels about Black people. He might have meant what he said, but there's a good chance he did not. Just like he yelled F the Queen when Queen Elizabeth was giving him an award, I'm going to guess he really wished he didn't say that. That's the problem. That's the issues that folks who have Tourette syndrome ultimately experience. Thinking about prioritizing impact, think about this. Let's say I'm driving and it's snowing and the streets are icy and I hit you. And I say, oh my gosh, I was driving so slowly. I didn't mean to. It was not my intent to hit you. I was being really careful. And I can't believe the city didn't salt the streets like they needed to. They need to be more prepared. And I'm going on and on while you're laying in the street. The priority is not all these things that are true. I was driving slowly. Yes, the city should have prepared the streets. All of those things are true, but none of that is the priority. The priority is that you're laying in the ground. The priority is that you were harmed, and we need to figure out how to address that. In this incident with BAFTAs, yes, it is true that Davidson has a disability where he says things that he likely does not mean. That is true. But the impact is that Delroy, Jordan, anyone else in that audience, and anyone else who was watching are laying in the street, and BAFTA did not respond appropriately. Number 3, slow down and see how power is moving. There's some commentary online that's really shifting to sympathy for Davidson, and that's really important. Disability deserves dignity, and it deserves education. We should understand how people with Tourette syndrome are experiencing the world, and we should know how to include them in it. Also, at the same time, our sympathy for folks should not overshadow the harm. We have to hold both. So we have to see how power is moving to see, are they overshadowing some people's experiences for others? So inclusive work requires us to have this balance between not being ableist, not dismissing racism, not minimizing harm, and not excluding folks with disabilities. There's some folks online that are saying, well, Davidson shouldn't have been there. That is exclusion. That's the opposite of what we're trying to do. And number 4, preventing that exclusion and also preventing harm means having a plan. I am not a disability inclusion expert, but they exist. I am not in communication crisis management expert, but they exist. So, what would it look like for BAFTA to have real time language around addressing harm that they could deploy when necessary? What does it look like to have proactive education for staff and folks in the audience? What might it be to already know what kinds of things we will edit or we wouldn't edit to prevent harm? And have clear accountability structures. So if any of this resonated with you, click the link in the bio. I work with mission-driven organizations all over the country to help them live the inclusion that they want to have.